Welcome to a very special edition of the Heart Wisdom panel. As some of you may know, if you've been here before, I am not the original facilitator of this. I get to flip the script today because this is a very special Heart Wisdom panel because it is about changing the world by being a helper. And the first person I'm going to introduce is usually the face you would see behind this panel. She's a person who listens with her whole heart, and her and Mango Publishing set this panel up every Wednesday during the beginning of the pandemic to help people through this challenging time. So talk about helpers. I can't imagine a better panel for her to start on. So I'm going to let her introduce herself, hold up her book, and lead us on the way. And then I will introduce our other very special guest.
Thank you, Rachel. I think you just froze. Can the rest of you hear me? Are we all frozen?
Yes, I hear you fine.
Okay. Hi, thank you, Rachel. I'm so happy to be here. And Fred, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
and
you for having me.
Thank you to all of you, to all of the folks from Mango and all of our special guests. I am author of Say It Now, which is 33 creative ways to say I love you to the most important people in your life. And my work is really all about, how do we reflect to people what they mean to us and how important they are to us? And all the time, not just on special occasions, but how do we really keep that at the forefront of our minds all the time, that the people we love, strangers, people in our lives that we just pass on the street, how do we stand in a place of love all the time? So thank you. I'm so glad to be on the other side of things today.
Well, thank you. Well, you do an amazing job of it. And your book has one of the quotes from your book that got me right off the bat, because she has all these little codes that you can get into these live videos with her. And one of my favorite things she says in one of the first videos is, you are changing the world by creating more love. I mean, that is so powerful. And I am so grateful for you, for what you do. Now, a very special welcome to our other amazing helper. I want to let him introduce himself and hold up your book and tell us a little bit about the book and why it's so important to have helpers right now during these challenging times.
So I'm Fred Guttenberg, and this is Find the Helpers. For those who aren't familiar with my story, my daughter, who's behind me on that wall, Jaime, was one of the victims of the Parkland school shooting. Both my kids were in the school that day, and thankfully my son made it out, but he did hear the bullets that were killing his sister. 4 months before my daughter was killed, my brother passed away from cancer related to his service in 9/11. And my life, especially as I started writing about it, really became clear to me that I don't get through what happened to me and my family without the help of others, without people stepping into my life in meaningful ways, some of whom I knew, many of whom I didn't know, some of whom did it just because, and who lifted me every day and carried me forward. And especially, I think, listening to you talk about your book, Sherry, about love, I think back to the early days after February 14th, when I truly felt like a broken man. And one of the reasons that I struggled beyond the loss was I could not remember the morning I sent my children out the door to school if I said to them 3 words, I love you. I was so busy rushing them out the door because they were running late, which is not uncommon. And I didn't expect that they would not be coming home in the same capacity that they left. I don't recall saying, I love you. It haunts me every day of my life. And so when I go out now and I talk to people on the road, wherever I go, it is such a big deal for me to always deliver a really simple message to people, which is every time you say goodbye to someone you love, you look them in the eye and you tell them you love them like it could be the very last time, because you never know. Don't waste any chance to say those three simple words. So I really appreciate your book. And, you know, I appreciate being here to be able to talk about my story.
We are so incredibly grateful that you are here and doing what you do. I am from Florida. I live in Florida. So I remember that day. I remember what happened after, and the changes that were made in schools immediately after. Yeah. And I remember seeing you at that first vigil where you were talking about the I love you to your daughter. And I remember it changed me. It really made me hyper aware of making sure my kids like knew that I love them every day. So, you know, as sorry as I am that you obviously have to experience, and so many families have had to experience these things, I'm grateful that you've become a voice.
Thank you.
And you are such a true helper. So with that, I'd like to go back to Sherry, because in your book, you do talk about a lot of creative ways that are different to say I love you.
Rachel, I just lost you for a sec.
I can hear you.
Okay, can you? I didn't hear what she asked.
I would like to go back to you that, you know, you have come up with to express that.
Sherry, she said there's a lot of creative ways that you talked about how to tell people the words I love you.
Oh, yes.
And asked you to talk about that.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I don't know why I'm losing Rachel, but
I think she may be having a little internet issue there.
Okay. Yeah, well, yes, thank you. Because, right, we all love to hear the words, I love you. And that's just always amazing. But I'm also really interested in creative ways to say, I love you. All sorts of ways that show people specifically why we love them is one of my favorite things. So many of you who know me, I have the cornerstone of my work is called a love list. And it's basically a list of specific reasons we love someone. And there are 1,000 different ways to present it. You can, you know, make it into a scroll. You can make it in a book with photographs. You can, you know, put it in an Easter basket and the little eggs. I mean, there's 1,000 ways to present it. But the idea is really to tell people all the specific reasons you can think of why you love them. And I highly recommend this to everybody because the process of doing it fills us with love. And so for me, I was very, very depressed for many years, and making love lists was one of the things that really transformed me. And so I could go on forever about that, but I'll just leave it at that. But that's one of the ways. And, you know, it can even be sending a postcard with just a few things you love about someone. It doesn't have to be, you know, 100 things.
And I had read your book and then did a couple love lists right after that. And it made me feel so good. And then to give it to, obviously, and you were one of the people I gave it to. So it just made my heart sing. And then to think about all these different creative ways of not just saying it and acting it out, it just meant so much. It's such an amazing book that way. Now, both of you in your books, you talk about the pivotal moment. And that pivotal moment being what launched you into truly becoming a helper, not just for yourself, but for the world. I mean, to really be a voice in the world. Fred, do we want to start with you and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. The day after Jaime was killed, at the vigil that you talked about, the first 24 hours were a whirlwind for me. There are some details I remember from the first 24 hours that are ingrained in me, but there's a lot that is just, it's gone. I just don't recall. And at that vigil, when I got there, I was asked by the mayor if I wanted to say a few words. And I decided, you know, I will. I wasn't sure why I said yes, but I just felt very amped up. The world was spinning a million miles a minute. And somehow or another, the decision to say, yes, I will do this, and then to walk up on that stage and decide what I was going to say, it slowed me down for the first time in 24 hours. And I got up there and I looked out across this park where thousands of people were. And for the first time in 24 hours, it hit me. We are victims of gun violence. This is what happened to me, my family, and my community. I should have known it before that. Of course, I did know it, but it was like the magnitude of it hit me in that moment. And I just went up and I started to talk about how I felt, about how I wasn't sure if I told my daughter I loved her the last time I saw her, about feeling broken, about being affected by gun violence, and about this realization that because of what happened, I needed to be part of doing something about it. I put the world on notice standing there without being prepared to, that nobody has ever dealt with the community like mine or a dad like me, and we're going to get this done. Again, I wasn't thinking too much. I went home from that. I walked in my house and I just said to my family that was there, I'm going to break that effing lobby. That just became my mission. And it's been my mission every day since. It is to break the lobby that holds the legislators and legislation hostage that can save all of your lives, that can save another kid. Nobody is saying this country can't go forward with its culture of gun ownership and respect for the Second Amendment, but that doesn't mean we can't be doing more to keep killers away from guns. And so that became my mission in life. I also decided that I was going to do this very quickly, differently than others. I didn't want to join one of the existing groups because nothing had been happening already. And for me, there was only one way to do it. And it's the only way I knew how. It was as Jaime and Jesse's dad. And that's how I went forward. Fortunately, people were paying attention. And fortunately, I was able to do it in a way where I would say 90% of the time I do it with respect and decency. Occasionally I get angry. But we're going to get this done. You know, November 3rd is coming and we're not going to fail. And this is my mission. I knew it that night.
Well, that's what got me when you had said that, is it's like, it's almost like it takes a moment to get this calling. And you never know when that moment's going to come. And I remember you in your book, you were talking about, you know, you wanted purpose after your brother died. And it's just like, I mean, I have chills right now just because it's amazing how things will unfold to show us how we can be a light in the world. So,
you know, when my brother passed away, you know, life sometimes works out in unusual ways. Shortly before he passed away, I had sold my business. So I was in this phase of trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. Because for the first time in my adult life, I really didn't have a meaningful thing to wake up for every day. And I'm not good at that. So after, you know, before my brother passed away, the real purpose in my life was taking care of him, going back and forth to New York every week, taking care of all of his last wishes of his estate. When he passed away, I'm like, what am I going to do now? I started looking for jobs or for another business. My wife just wanted me to do nothing for a bit because she just knew I needed to do that. And so he passed away October of 2017. For the most part, the rest of that year in 17, I didn't do much. By January, I was crawling up the walls, just needing something, needing what I called a purpose. And unfortunately, it fell into my lap just a month and a half later on February 14th.
Do you want to explain the orange ribbons?
Yeah. So
purpose.
So this is, I don't have it on my shirt right now, but this is our orange ribbon. Orange happens to be the color of the gun safety movement. So many people think that's why we did it, but it's actually not. Orange was Jaime's favorite color. And the day she was killed, my daughter competitively danced, as you can see behind me. All of her dance sisters got together in the dance studio that day and started making orange ribbons. And they all came over to my house the next day, before the vigil actually, all wearing orange ribbons. And they marched up to her room, crying and screaming. And they took pictures and posted of themselves on social media. Almost immediately, the dance world picked it up. And dance studios across the country, dance competitions across the country started dedicating the rest of their year to Jaime. Broadway shows, The Lion King, Hamilton, and others started dedicating performances to Jaime, and they would all wear orange ribbons on those dedicated performances. So before you knew it, this orange ribbon went viral. And all of these dance kids made thousands so that they were worn at Jaime's funeral. And I talked about the orange ribbons movement at Jaime's funeral because it just was moving so fast. And orange just became a representation of everything that was amazing about my daughter. A few weeks later, I was in a supermarket, or I think maybe a Home Depot, and I was wearing my orange ribbon. And I see you're wearing the fabric one. Those are what we wore early on. And I was wearing mine, and somebody asked what it was for. And when I explained to them, they said, "Did you know that was the color of the gun safety movement?" I had no idea because I was new to this. And I went home, I said to my wife that day, we need to start our foundation. I said, we're going to call it Orange Ribbons for Jaime. The connection is too big. And the thing about the movement, they had a color, they didn't have a symbol, but now they do. It's the orange ribbon. And when you saw the House of Representatives led by Nancy Pelosi signing background checks, which they passed in the House, they were all there wearing their orange ribbons. And so the orange ribbon became a symbol of the gun safety movement. But for us, it's more than that, because it's also symbolizes everything that was amazing about my daughter. It honors everything that mattered to my daughter in life, things like anti-bullying, working with kids with special needs, which she did all the time, supporting dance programs and the Humane Society because she was dog obsessed. We've started a college scholarship program for kids of all abilities, because while we do give scholarships to kids who are going on to traditional education, there are also special needs kids who don't always go on to a traditional four-year education, and we want to make sure they're getting scholarships from us as well. So the Orange Ribbons movement for us is all about what mattered to Jaime in life, but also recognizing and educating about why her life was cut short.
Oh, I just absolutely love that. I love that, you've put it very forward that you come as dad. It's not about sides to you. It's about you are representing her and standing up for her as that person. And I love that you bring the humanity, and you did this in your book so well. You brought the humanity into each of your helpers. It wasn't about their titles. It was about their humanity. And that was such a beautiful thing to me, because it helped you see beyond the experience of what they may do for their living. It's how they act as a person. So
Listen,
I really love that.
I don't know where my life was headed before Jaime was killed. Um, what I do know is since she was killed, I have this guilt that I live with every second of every day, that my voice was not involved in this advocacy before it was my kid. And, you know, I, so I can tell you with certainty since February 14th, um, there's no question that I'm doing what I need to do. But boy, had that not happened, I honestly probably would have ended up doing something much less meaningful, whether it was involved in a business or something like that. Um, I will tell you, I'll never do anything more important than what I'm doing now, and so I wish this didn't become my purpose. Um, People tell me all the time, when talking about God's plan, that maybe this is why this happened to me, which I just simply do not accept. I did not need to have this happen to my family. Um, but life works in really mysterious and strange ways.
I'm so grateful for what you do in that, because it is so easy to have taken a different route. I've seen plenty of people lose loved ones and take a totally different route. And the fact that you have opened your heart to help so many people, in her honor, is just it's so touching and so special. And like you've talked about, you speak from the heart. And that's what we need. We need people who speak from the heart, so it's authentic and it's human. And you said something really interesting earlier about perspectives, and perspectives of media, perspectives of politicians, and your experience of that. And I thought that was so great, because we can get really caught in that negative cycle of thinking of people, and so we stop looking for good ones. We stop looking for them.
100%.
And so the fact that you're seeing the different side, you're seeing this, and I'm hoping it will really open the doors for all of us to actually, like you said, look for the helpers, look for them.
You listen, if I could sum up my book in 2 closing sentences, because you just literally did it. We all have our helpers. Everyone does. But you have to open your heart and your mind to them. You have to be willing to let them in. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, whenever you're in a position to be a helper, it's your responsibility to do so. It's not just about being helped by others, it's about being a helper to others. And I'm so thankful that all of these amazing people, and with their generosity and their charity to me and my family, stepped into our lives, because we would not have been able to take the steps forward that we did without them. And I'm very thankful now to all of those across the country who are letting me into their life, who are letting me do what I do and helping me to do what I do. Because together, that is how we're going to get this done. I talk in the book about, after my brother died, my worldview shrunk. It got really small. It was about my wife, my kids, and my family, making sure we were all right. Because I'm one of 5 kids. My parents are still alive. As a family, we never went through anything like this. After Jaime died, my worldview blew up. It became about the 40,000 a year who die of gun violence and all the impacted families. And so they're my helpers, but they're also letting me be their helper. And I think as I think we would be so much more civil to one another if we actually were able to focus on one another in that way.
Oh, I love that. And this is what I love about you, because you bring the humanity out in people. Like when I was reading your book, even though you talk a lot about politicians, I saw the human behind the politician. I saw the human in the celebrities that helped you. I saw the human in Biden helping you. And it's such a difference, because when we make those categorical all statements and put everybody into a category, we miss the human. And you have such a way of, in your words, you brought it out so beautifully to help us see each individual human. And that's another thing I love about you, Sherry, too. Your drive and your purpose of showing people love and teaching people how to express love does that same thing. It makes you focus and hone in on that person. Can you talk a little bit? Do you have anything to add to that?
I just want to respond to something Fred said that really jumped out at me. When I heard you talking just now, Fred, and you know, I was thinking of find the helper. For the first time, when I heard that, I thought, find that person in here too, right? So we're looking for we're finding the helpers, but we're also finding, and that's so profound, you know, and I want to kind of pause for a moment, because I think this is really important, that it's actually, it is an active process, you know, at least in my life, and I'll speak just for myself, but it's like love is a really active process for me. It's not just something that it either happens or it doesn't, or I feel love or I don't feel love. And I think, Fred, my projection, at least when I read your book, that's what I saw all over the place too, which is it's an active process of how do you help in the world, and how do you find the people that are helping you, and really notice that that's what's happening. Because it's so easy for us to just go through life and forget to pay attention to what's really going on.
Listen, and it didn't hit me at first, to be quite candid. So when I wrote this book, my mission was simply to write my story, to get my voice out. Every day people see me getting my voice out on Twitter. It's how I get things off my chest. And I wrote this book to do that. I just had to tell my story. And while I was really proud of it, and I'm very thankful for Mango, at first nobody was interested in the book. And I ended up with an agent, a really wonderful guy, who said to me, "You're not done writing." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, I said, "This is my story. I have nothing left to say." He goes, "Oh, yes, you do." He goes, "You're not done writing." He goes, "I read your book." He goes, "Everything in here is about all these other people. I want to know more about that." And he pushed me to write on. And so I did. And that's how it became clear to me. I never thought of them as my helpers. I just thought of, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. But it was so much deeper than that. And, you know, listen, by continuing to write, which took me probably another 6 or 7 months, it also allowed me to capture a lot of other stories that wouldn't be in the book. The State of the Union, for example, or the endorsement of Biden, or COVID. And so my book ended up really tying together a lot of other themes. I was exhausted when he said to me, "You need to keep on writing." I pushed back, but it's the greatest thing that ever happened, because it opened my eyes to look at my life in a really different way, and one that I hope now gets other people to always be cognizant of.
Mm. I can't imagine not. After reading your book. I mean, because it touches the soul. It really touches the heart. And like we keep saying, and that's the best helpers are the ones that come from the heart. And it doesn't mean we're going to do it perfectly, because we're human. But when we come from the heart, it's authentic and it's us. And it's just such an important way to put ourselves out there and help people see too. You know, and I was thinking this about when you were talking, Sherry, about, you know, people often judge people's outsides and think they know their insides. And so to see the more vulnerable aspects of a person's heart, to see that, Sherry, you once struggled, to see, Fred, your pain, it makes you more human to people. You know, it makes you more approachable, because it's not about putting people on pedestals. It's about seeing they're human and appreciating them for their human.
Hey, is it okay if I speak to something else Fred just said?
Sure.
Moment. Because I think this is, at least for me, this was one of the most important aspects of your book. There were so many, but, and you said it again today on the panel, which is when you said, I think about all the time, all those years that I wasn't speaking up for parents who had lost children in this way, or for other people who were victims of gun violence. And we could carry that out across the board, right? Like that there are so many people in pain and in darkness. And I wanted to tell you like that really spoke to me, because I think it's so important that we understand where our blind spots are, you know, and for me, like it started in my own work. I think it started with Father's Day, you know, that I started realizing I was promoting all these like fun gifts for Father's Day, but then I suddenly started thinking about, what about fathers who have lost their children? What about people who have just lost their dads? What about single fathers who are trying to raise their kids and there's nobody to help them to celebrate? Like I realized I had this big blind spot about all of these people who on this particular day were really going to be in great pain. And I think, sadly enough, like there's across the board, we can always, you know, look beneath the curtain to see that. And I think you really helped me, Fred, when you said that. You really helped me to see, where am I not looking? And where do I want to look right now while I have the energy and love to give? So that was just hugely important for me.
Thank you.
So Fred, would you like to read that
Sure.
that beautiful paragraph you have at your book?
Yeah, you know, listen, it's a paragraph about one of the many changes in the way I view my life now. And just to kind of give everyone a heads up, I am a guy who always had a long-term plan. Everything I did, every decision, didn't only look at what it meant to me and my family today, but a month down the road, a year down the road, 5 years down the road. You know, I always was planning out. And what this has taught me or caused me to do is no longer have a long-term vision. And so I write, the biggest shift is not looking ahead anymore. I do not have a long-term view. It's one day at a time. The reality is that I now understand that life can change in a second, and nothing is more important to me than what is happening right now. Every day, surrounded by the love and support of my helpers, both near and far, I make the best of that day. On the next day, we start over.
I just love that. I mean, I already, obviously everybody can see I'm glistening, but I was like, waterfalls. The first time I read it, it was waterfalls, because it was that touch it. That's it. And right now, that is what's so important, because 2020 has showed us we literally can only live day to day, because we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. And
make every day count.
yeah, And I honestly, I think I'm going to frame that paragraph and put it in my room just to remind me daily to stay there, to stay in that, and to stay in the moment. You know, I always try to remember to do things that will keep me present. And this is one of them. This is one of my new tools. So you were a huge helper to me by giving me that tool.
Well, thank you.
So I'd like to open the group up. If you have had anything that really touched you today that you want to bring up or talk about, or if you have a positive intention you want to bring out into the world after hearing this talk, I want to allow people to have a space to let their heart speak right now. So if you feel a calling to let your heart speak in this moment, I invite you to do so.
It seems
Sarah.
like Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm a Mango intern right now. I did not have an orange ribbon, but I decided to wear an orange t-shirt for Jaime today because I was looking forward to meeting you. I do a lot of like everyone's social media, like Nita, Sherry, Rachel, and Fred had posted about you a few times for Mango's social media accounts. So it's really great to see you guys and be able to talk to you. So I just quickly, where this question's coming from for you, Fred. I just graduated from Syracuse University in May, and thank you. And while I was at the university, I was part of the Remembrance Scholarship Program. I was a Remembrance Scholar, and how that started was in 1988, the Pan Am 103 flight that was hijacked and exploded over Lockerbie had 35 Syracuse students on board. And that really impacted our community and our campus. And afterward, you know, such a great tragedy. They wanted to do something to remember those students' lives. And so they came up with the idea of the Remembrance Program, where 35 rising seniors each year represented one of the students who was lost in that flight. So all last year I spent getting to know the family and learning about the life of one of the students named Richard Paul Minetti. And the motto of that event was, or of the Remembrance Scholar event that we do each year, is look back and act forward. And through that whole process, what I learned was that in such a terrible tragedy, there's so much that can be learned, so much that can connect other people. But I also learned that some people have a really hard time talking about terrible trauma, obviously, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone, but also like once they do open up, there's so much community and so much love and friendship that can be found from it. And it can also help you heal. And I met so many people that told me, like, I waited 20 years to tell someone how I felt after that event occurred. So my question for you, Fred, is how would you, what advice would you give to those experiencing a type of trauma like you have gone through, or the families of Pan Am 103? Like, how do you learn to open up about your own emotions about such a traumatic event and to try to make those steps towards finding a helper?
Well, first, thank you for asking that. And your question is part of the reason why we actually put a resource section in the back of our book with many organizations that can support somebody who just needs to turn somewhere for help in a variety of different places. And many of those organizations are focused on something as simple as kindness. My advice to anybody is don't try to go through alone. Whether it means you connect with one person, 10 people, or 100 people, don't try to do it alone. It'll devour you. And people are there for you. And if you feel like, well, maybe I'm in a community and I really don't know anybody, there's now these amazing platforms, Zoom, or pick up the phone, or go to a place of worship or a community center. But I can say with such confidence that there is always somebody there for us if we're willing to let them be there for us. And so I really do. I just think the most important piece of advice that we can do is encourage people. Don't go through it alone.
It's such a more important message to not go through it alone. Nobody needs to go through it alone. The access is available. Anybody else would like a question or speak out with an intention?
I have a question for Fred.
Okay.
Of course, Brenda.
Yes. Fred, I feel like I missed out on meeting your whole family, but like especially Michael. And I wondered if like Michael had like a personal motto or something he lived by. I just want to know him a little better.
He for the people he worked with, okay, he was always known for just a very simple phrase, good work. My brother ran emergency rooms and did a lot of mentoring and teaching, and all of those who knew him just used to always say it was actually what it was good work, or he always would say, strong work. He was always focused on trying to encourage people and show them the best of what they do. I mean, anyone who knew my brother knew that he was going to give you all the coaching and advice you needed, but he was also going to leave you feeling like you're going to really do a great job at this. On a personal level, no, he didn't. My brother lived alone. He wasn't married. He had these amazing friends who were like family to him. But his life was about his work. In fact, I write about it in the book. His work and his employer giving him the ability to work in any capacity when he was at his sickest, I am convinced to this day, gave him the ability to live extra days and months because he had something to live for. So my brother, that's what his life was. It was work, teaching, training, mentoring.
Well, he did a lot of strong work.
He did. He was an amazing guy.
Well, and I love that because of what he did, his legacy gets passed down.
Well, it does. Amazingly, my younger brother, at the age of 49, he's now 50, went and became an EMT to carry on the legacy of my brother. And he does that now for a volunteer ambulance corps in New York. And my son is planning on becoming an EMT firefighter. So the legacy will carry on.
And that's what's the beautiful thing when you lead with your heart, the heart will carry on to the next generation and the next generation, because we never know who we touch.
Well, my brother did touch a lot, and for my son, that was his hero. So
that's awesome. Awesome. Does anybody else want to set any positive intentions to set us off? Yes, Linda.
I don't know if you can see me. I just wanted to say that I appreciate the both of you, that you demonstrate the importance of using your voice and using it from love, both on a big scale and on an individual scale. So like in large numbers, but also with one heart at a time, which I think is really important. So I really appreciated that balance that you both manage to share your heart and your wisdom individually and on a bigger scale. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Can I add to that? I'm just going to, I guess. I just jumped right in.
Of course, Sherry.
Because right before Linda said that, I was looking, which I often do. I love these panels. And I was looking at everyone's faces, and some people are names, but they're still, individual people. And I was thinking, we don't always think of all the ways that we're helpers in the world. But all of you showing up, and those of you, there's some people who come every week and who have been here. This is one of those ways, because even if it's just me, I'm just going to say it for my own self. We started these when the pandemic started, and this has been a huge light for me in my life. And you may not think, oh, it's a big deal whether do I come or not come. but you matter. And I think it's just really important that we all broaden the way that we think about being helpers in the world. Showing up to be love with other people, which is what I consider this to be, that's huge. I come away from these every week feeling enlivened and, just more happy and positive. And that's because of you. So I just want to make sure that people realize that too. There's a million ways to be a helper.
Thank you.
Brenda, that's beautiful. Brenda just said listening is an act of love.
Oh, and Sherry, you do it wholeheartedly. I am always blown away how intently you can listen and then actively respond to let the person you're talking to know you hear them, like fully hear them. It's just such a beautiful gift you have, and it really speaks to the heart. All
Probably
right.
a good time before you go say anything else, Rachel. It's a good time also to thank you for your showing up so beautifully for us today and all the weeks you show up. You're such an active and beautiful participant in these heart panels, but especially today, thank you.
You've all been amazing, so thank you for having me.
Yes, it's been a true honor. Thank you so much for allowing me to facilitate this. It was such a special panel. Just before we go out, I just want to make sure we get everybody. Did anybody else want to say anything?
I do.
Nita.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? I have a different mic. Can you hear me all right? Okay, yeah. Well, I want to always thank Mango because they're amazing, all the Mangos, the Mango family. But Fred, I wanted to say something to you. On Twitter, a lot of times I kind of am neutral and am not always ready to speak my mind. And so watching you walk into this the way you have, I mean, I know you were thrown into it. It wasn't a choice. I get that. But the choice was what happened after. And so I tend to just talk about myself because that's what I do. But you showed people a way to be active in a wholesome, healthy way that works. And people don't always do that. I mean, they can launch into this campaign and then it can be very off-putting and stuff. So I just want to say that, there's a small family in Central Ohio that's paying very close attention. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Where in Ohio?
I'm in Columbus, Upper Arlington, actually. Yeah.
I have family in Cincinnati, so.
Oh yeah, not too far. Yeah.
Okay, last call. All right. I want to thank Fred and Sherry for being our special guests today and talk about special. It was such an honor because I read your books back to back. 1 day, 2 days, 2 days, 2 books. That's how, yeah, front cover to cover. And reading them together had such a different, special experience because of the intertwining messages, but from different angles. It was really an amazing experience to do. So I highly suggest it to you all. Can you both put up your books again one more time?
You betcha.
Because it really was a special experience to be able to put them together, because it's like your whole heart opens up when you read them together. So thank you both so much for being on this today and for letting me to be a part of it. I am so grateful, and I'm so grateful to Mango and all the interns at Mango. Thank you. You guys rock. You're awesome. And Brenda, the fact that you have brought us all together, it's a family, and you've made such a special experience for Mango and the authors, and the entire experience of it is something magical, and it's something you can't get anywhere else. So I'm so grateful. And Debbie, the rock star who keeps us all together here. Thank you. So to all of you who are here, all of you who come and participate and speak your words and who just listen with smiles on your faces. It means something. It really means something to us all. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of this. So with that, I will say goodbye and leave you all to a very happy evening where your heart is full and we can go into the next moment one day at a time and one moment at a time and start over again tomorrow.
Have a lovely night, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.